Hey guys, Raisins here, back with another video, and this time we are learning about how to better manage your minion waves in League. A lot of people struggle to improve their minion wave management and prefer to focus on the mechanical side of the game. And while that is fine up to a point, eventually you're going to face diminishing returns in terms of your improvement. So this video is the cure for that. We're going to go through a couple things that you can do to better teach yourself when and how to make decisions regarding your wave, and then some examples from both my games in high elo on EUS and some competitive games to show you how the pros do it. If you liked this video or found it useful, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and if you have any more questions on video requests, leave a comment and I'll be sure to get to it. Let's get started. A lot of people understand the basics of minion management, like what is a freeze or a slow push, etc. Don't worry, we'll get to the details later. But they also struggle to make that knowledge known in game. So I wanted to give you some advice around how to use this video and actively change your decisions around your waves in your ranked games. Think of this as a how to assemble guide for the IKEA shelf of wave management. Firstly, set realistic goals and expectations for how much information you can actually take from this video and implement into your games. Challengers aren't made overnight, so don't expect to watch this video and immediately get a call from Reggie asking you to be the next AD carry for TSM. Work on these concepts and stay focused in your games, and the elo will come later. Prioritize practicing properly. The next point I will make, after discussing with my army of lawyers, I am legally obligated to mention that there is not always a right or a wrong regarding your wave decisions. Minion waves are a tool to achieve what it is you want in League, and you should see them as such. Sometimes you will want to go against the conventional idea, and that's fine. Trial and error work great in this case, as League has so many different variables which affect your wave decisions, the matchup, the game state, and even individual player tendencies can completely change what is possible with your lane. I want to quickly caution against memorizing and flowcharting this stuff out. Try your best to understand the logic behind it, and you'll be able to make smarter decisions in the future on your own. And finally, the most important part is don't be a bystander. This one I hope is self-explanatory, but if you want to improve at something, you need to actively make decisions and evaluate those decisions. So start by making choices about your wave and whether you want to push, recall, freeze, or slow push your wave. Then you can decide whether you made the right call and learn from there. Active choices equals active improvement. So let's quickly go over the basics of minion waves. There are plenty of great resources out there that explain these, so I won't spend too much time on this section. If you want a recommendation for a video for a beginner, I'll link the Pro Guide's minion wave management video below. There are three different states of the lane when we talk about minion waves: freezing, slow pushing, and fast pushing. If you want, you can include a fourth, which would be a neutral lane state, but almost always there will be some imbalance in the lane that means one side has an inherent pushing advantage. So, starting with the easiest concept is fast pushing. It is what it says on the tin. Just push the wave so fast that your minions hit the enemy tower before the enemy minions can stop your wave. Very common for resetting or when your opponent dies in lane. The next concept is freezing. This is when one minion wave is stuck at a certain point in the lane, and as long as the freeze is maintained, which depends on a few factors which I'll talk about in a second, the minion wave will stay there until the queen finds a new host. And finally, slow pushing. This is one of the most powerful tools you have in your minion wave arsenal. Slow pushing is simply fast pushing, but slower, and revolves around your minions slightly outnumbering the enemy minions and snowballing into a huge stacked wave. I'll talk about how you can achieve this in a bit. Some additional terms that most people know, I'll quickly go over them anyway. Bouncing is when the wave hits a tower and is going to bounce back to the other side of the lane. This generally results in a slow push, as the wave that is attacking the tower isn't attacking the enemy minion wave. So the enemy minions stack up and they become a double wave, then a triple wave, and then they crash into your tower and the process repeats, but this time to the other side. Lane priority is when you have control over the lane in such a way that if you move, the opponents are going to lose something. That's the best way I can explain it. If you have lane priority, it doesn't always mean you have push. Sometimes you can get lane priority via threatening to kill the opponents or with strong vision control. This is a really in-depth topic which I could go on about for a while, so I'll save that for another video. A term I like to use when the enemy is stuck under tower dealing with a huge wave is that it's your turn. That basically means it's time to do something on the map because the enemy obviously doesn't want to lose a huge wave of minions. This concept is probably the most instructive for low elo players, as the number one easily fixable problem I see is people making plays when it's not their turn. And finally, just for accuracy, minion waves spawn with 3 caster minions and 3 melee minions, with a cannon minion spawning every third wave in the first 20 minutes of the game. Between 20 to 35 minutes, they spawn every 2 waves, and after 35 minutes, there's a cannon minion every wave. So now that your brain is slightly larger, what do you need to do to create a freeze or a slow push, etc.? Well, it's a lot simpler than it looks. To create a freeze, you simply need a certain number of minions more of the enemy minion wave than your wave. The number depends on where in the lane you are, and in the longer lanes like top and bot, if you want to freeze closer to your tower, you'll need around 4 or more minions, preferably casters, to freeze the wave indefinitely. Whereas in the center of the lane, you can get away with having only around 1 or 2. I should mention that part of freezing is last hitting the minions as low as possible, as you want those bad boys to squeeze out as much damage against your own wave as possible. Maintaining a freeze takes practice, and you can practice that in a custom game. Go into the custom game, go top lane, and kill 1 or 2 casters in the wave. Let your wave stack up a bit and then crash into tower. Once the enemy wave starts pushing back, let it come closer to your tower and then start trying to freeze. Try and hold the freeze as long as you can. If you do it perfectly, you'll be able to happily farm forever, but if you don't, at some point the freeze will turn into a slow push. So, what do you need to do to create a slow push? Essentially, a slow push is just a hybrid of a freeze and a fast push. What you need then is simply a slight imbalance in the wave, so that one side of the minions will snowball into 2 or 3 waves of minions. This again is quite simple to demonstrate in a custom game, so go into a custom, and in the process I mentioned before, after you crash your wave into the tower, the enemy minions will start slow pushing back to you. Most slow pushes can be turned into a freeze if you are strong enough in your lane. Just be careful and remember that when you are slow pushing a wave, your minions are chomping through the enemy minions, and you'll lose farm if you don't prevent a freeze in front of the enemy tower. So now I wanted to go through a bunch of examples and demonstrate just how powerful proper wave management is. I encourage you to pause the video after I set up the scenario and think about what you would have done if you were playing that lane. The first example is of Damwon Gaming, 2020 World Champion in the group stage playing versus Rogue, and it's a perfect example of just how powerful early slow pushes can be. Damwon are aware that Gangplank has no wave control early against a Lulu, and they abuse this to the maximum to make poor Finn book his ticket to North America. I also want to point out that even in the event they cannot dive, the slow push is better than a fast push, as Lulu gets much more time to harass GP under tower. But this being Canyon and Nagiri, of course they can dive.
No W. Level 2, here on the Gangplank, no mana left to work with first, but they made it look so easy, man. Damwon Gaming with that first blood.
Now I hear you saying, Raisins, that's a pro team. How do I pull that off in my games when I have 4 wooden planks as teammates? And I hear you, strange angry person on the internet. So here's a few examples of me in some of my own SoloQ games doing it with a random jungler with no voice comms or Koreans in the room. So in this clip, I just reset alongside my jungler and my ADC. My ADC is a Draven, and I know that he has pushing advantage even when he's solo. Additionally, if you are all good students, you'll see that the wave is bouncing from our tower, and it has started to slow push towards the enemy Ezreal. As soon as I come from base, I start planning a dive, knowing that the enemy bot lane doesn't have any way of clearing the huge wave quickly. Adding all these factors together, and that my jungler is on the bot side of the map, I know that the dive is very straightforward and that it just comes down to execution. I make sure I know what sums they have, I think about who I want to focus and who tanks tower, and then I use my pings to let my Talia know what I want to do. I do not have R. So if Draven pushes this wave, then we're fine. Cool. I'm just going to ignite him. Tank one more and back off. Cool. Another example from my SoloQ games, I noticed that Ziggs has used a lot of mana on the wave and can't stop us pushing the wave in. I also noticed that Graves is finishing Crab and could potentially dive. I flash on Seraphine to burn her sums as I get my level 3 advantage. This has 2 benefits. Firstly, Seraphine burns her cooldowns before the dive, so we get her flash. And secondly, it stops her from stepping up and clearing the wave too much before Graves gets here. I then ping my Graves bot lane and we start pushing the wave. My Draven also steps up and tanks some abilities, which actually ends up being great because Ziggs can't use his spells on the wave anymore, and we get a free dive off. Using the same game, Damwon versus Rogue, there are so many great examples of excellent wave management in this game. I can show you guys how massive a lead you can get just by using the simple threat of freezing. So this example starts off the back end of the dive top lane with GP having TP'd in to catch the farm after dying. And as we talked about earlier, a slow push is starting towards Lulu's side of the lane. Now since Lulu is such a lane bully, she is threatening to freeze her lane if GP doesn't get help. So we see Inspired on Hecarim coming top lane to solve this issue ASAP. But you have to remember that diverting resources to help a laner break a freeze means Damwon have vision on Hecarim, and Hecarim isn't keeping up tempo farming. So this threat of a freeze top results in what then? Well, Graves gets Hecarim's wolves, and Damwon's bot lane also has a wave they can freeze. So this situation is just a lose-lose for Rogue. The fact that Rogue cannot control both bot and top wave means they lose so much on the map simply because of waves slow pushing away from them. And just to add insult to injury, I kept this part in to show you how hard it is for Rogue to play when they have 3 lanes in need of help. Graves strolls mid lane to shove Larsen's Syndra under tower and go bot side jungle. Damwon transitions the freeze into a slow push bot lane as they need to base, and lo and behold, top lane starts a slow push into GP's tower. So Finn is once again getting harassed under tower. Inspired on Hecarim is basically just firefighting at this point, trying to save his team from being crushed under the 3 terrible lane situations that Rogue finds themselves in. Just a quick note, Rogue did recover relatively well in this game from the start, and it's a testament to their ability to find good skirmishes, but in the end, Damwon did end up winning this game. So taking that concept into SoloQ again, with the last few examples, here are some clips of me using similar concepts to freeze a wave and deny the opponent's counterplay when I know I have a stronger laning phase. So in this example, I just based after crashing a wave bot lane and the enemy has a slow push into us. I know that Ashe has no flash and they have a worse 2v2 even in the giant wave if I play the fight correctly. So I use this to create a threat of freeze on the Ashe. If they don't walk up, then we get a freeze, but if they do walk up, we will trade on them and possibly kill them. After Ashe dies, we freeze the wave and I sit in the bush and threaten my Hex Flash whenever they try and break the freeze. You'll see Lucian and myself just walk up past the wave when we have time, completely remove any chance that Lux can damage the wave and break our freeze. The next step is when do we break the freeze in base? Well, as you'll see, that's when Lux gets desperate and walks into my range and dies. After this point, Lucian needs to base. So he starts hitting the wave, breaks the freeze, and we have 2 waves stacked up, so it's hard to gank us, and the enemy bot lane is too weak to freeze themselves. We get a really nice recall in. Couple important points about freezing in these situations, however. Number 1 is make sure you are strong enough to fight the enemy laner and they can't just walk up and break the freeze for free. Make them trade something for breaking the freeze if you can, something like vision. If they have to place wards in the bush to see Alistar, then that's a resource you've gained, or even better, if they have to risk dying to stop you. And secondly, make sure you can't get ganked. That's the most important point here. Dying when you are trying to freeze is insanely punishing, as you're just going to lose all those minions you've been saving up. So make sure the jungler isn't ready to gank you, or the solo laners can't dive you under tower. That's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this, I can make videos about more advanced wave concepts, where you can do things like taking intentional bad trades to put the waves in a better state, when to sacrifice waves, etc. If you want to watch my SoloQ games live, then here is my Twitch. And remember to leave a like and comment if you have any questions. Thanks, and good luck in your games.